Which are you picking?
Oh, I got to pick one of these lists. Let's
You can pick
see.
a, or you can just pick the starting gold, and
I'm
that
not
saves
picking the
both
starting
time.
gold. I that's ironic because if you pick the starting gold, that usually involves wasting a lot of time
Wait,
shopping.
oh yeah, that's normally way more time intensive.
Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Sam West, and today is what is it, Sam? What day is it?
I have no idea.
Today, our little adventure turns 2 years old.
Oh my
Two
goodness.
2 years ago today, we did Harm, the spell review, and we have not missed a day since.
Look at us
So
go.
happy
Happy
birthday!
birthday.
All right, and for this occasion, Sam is going to be taking us through his process for making a custom background for your character. And
Believe it or not, there are rules for this. I was like, do these exist? They do. And I was like, we can use these so everyone can have a nice, clean, easy way to just, how do I make my own background? This is how you do it.
okay, um, so this isn't yours.
So the process is mine. The rules reflect the rules of the actual game.
Okay,
So like the rules give you here's how you edit a background. I extrapolate that to just make it custom from the ground up using the edit rules
okay,
functionally because everything is mutable when it comes to background creation according to the rules that they gave us in the fun little section that I quote on the piece that you can see going to the Caverns Creatures site, which I'm hoping is linked below.
yes. Well, I was gonna just mention that before we dive in. Yes, there is a written version of this, and it will be linked in the description. So go check it out.
Indeed. So yeah, this is step-by-step custom backgrounds. How to do it, why you should do it, why it's a good time. I will make a quick caveat here. If you are playing in a specific adventure setting, and that specific adventure setting gives backgrounds that include feats, these are not going to be of the same caliber as those because these don't include feats. So a lot of background features provide feats from things like Dragonlance, from things like Strixhaven. If you're using either of those, or someone at your table is using either of those, I would recommend adding a sixth step, which is pick a simple feat that's like skilled or tough or something relatively low power to match
Yeah.
those other feats. Beyond that, though, if you're just like playing with your friends, first time DNAing, you want to make, or you just want to make your own custom background because you're tired of the ones that exist, this is how you do it within the rules of the game.
All right. I'm gonna let you take it because I'm gonna eat this cupcake.
Excellent. So our step-by-step breakdown, there's 5 steps you have to follow. It's really, really simple. So first step, you pick 2 skills. Second step is you pick 2 tools or language proficiencies. Go with tools. Third step is to pick either equipment package or starting wealth. Those are 2 different things we'll talk about. Step 4 is you pick your background feature, or you create a custom background feature with your DM. It's also according to the rules. And the 5th step is you choose your personality traits, bonds, and flaws. And that's just, customizing your character's backstory, basically. It's that simple. For
Okay.
literally that's it. Like you pick skills, pick tools, pick trait, and then you're basically done. Or pick
All
equipment, then
right.
pick trait, then you're done.
And I mean, you do want this to all have, fit together thematically.
Ideally, it doesn't have to, but ideally,
Yeah.
so like a lot of what I like to consider is your background is the history of your character. And characters do a lot of different things. If you were a miner for the first 15 years of your life, you grew up as a child miner because you yearned for them because you were 6 years old, and the children yearn for the mines, as is the meme. You might have not done any mining for 30 years after that if you're playing a mid-life character, right? If you're in your 50s or whatever, maybe you left the mines and then spent that time doing other activities. Your time in the mines still might reflect like spinning tools. It still might reflect some element of your character that doesn't necessarily trait or ascribe to the same as the background. Maybe you became a folk hero after that. You saved the mine, then you left and you went on your journeys and you've been adventuring ever since. You can link together these even obscure ideas by way of a complex backstory. So, that's a thing to keep in mind.
Okay.
We can just go through them step by step real quick. My general advice, tidbits of it. This isn't going to be a particularly long video. It's just making backgrounds.
Oh, are we not going to go through the sample you made?
Oh, we can go through the sample too, sure.
Okay.
That sounds good.
Yep.
Starting with step number 1, picking skills. For the most part, skills are made relatively equally, but there are a couple outliers, and those are the intelligence skills. Basically, when you're picking your 2, I wouldn't ever pick more than one of Arcana, History, Investigation. Or sorry, Arcana, History, Religion, or Nature. Investigation is a little bit different,
Yep.
but those 4 that I listed, they used to be the lore skills back in 3.5, and other editions had lore as a whole identity to it. Generally speaking, those skills are going to be a lot less useful. You're going to use them less often than you would in acrobatics, a stealth, a sleight of hand, a perception, and intimidation, performance, that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Additionally, I wanted to quickly mention, I also would try to get just like one of the charisma skills of deception, persuasion, and intimidation, because they kind of serve the same job, and it will kind of paint how does your character approach, getting information out of somebody. How does your character
Right.
approach needing to find something out using their words? That's the charisma skill I'd recommend going with. You usually don't need more than one of them.
All right.
Any thoughts on skills?
Um, like you, all right. You've talked about all right. The charisma skills, you're only going to need one of those. The lore skills, you might need one of those, but you certainly don't need more than one.
Yeah.
Are there any like you definitely want?
So I think the top ranked skills, the ones that I call for the most, are stealth and perception.
Perception,
After,
yeah.
I think athletics is a pretty close third. It might be more than stealth in some games. Those 3, I think, are sort of reigning kings as far as what are the best skills in the game. That being said, what your party has is very important. If you know what your other players are taking, you probably want to take a skill they don't have, because it's
Hmm.
useful to have everyone have their own little niches. And even something like animal handling, while it's not going to be called for as much as stealth, you can make animal handling a big part of your character. You can use it a lot. Animals happen to be all over the place. Medicine is great for getting people off of 0. If you want to be the person that's stabilizing creatures, medicine's great. You can also use it to like identify stuff, as far as like, well, I'm going to use medicine to see what injuries befell this, and that can give you information on upcoming traps and whatnot. So like, I would say most of the other skills are in the rung below athletics, stealth, and perception, but they're all still perfectly fine. Any 2 of those will be good. You probably don't need to take, like, if you wanted to optimize, you could just take stealth, perception. Those are probably going to be the best on the average character, but I mean, your class is going to matter. Other context is going to matter. Um,
Well, I
I don't
mean,
think there'd
you're
be like a
making
strict hierarchy.
when we're talking about making a custom background, is this like something you're doing like for a specific game? Like you, all right, you say, you see what skills the other players have, and try and supplement that with some different ones. Is I mean, but you're gonna, this is a background. It's a thing that exists now for the future. Is that not something you're keeping in mind? Or
Not even a little bit.
no? All
This
right.
is Whenever you're making a custom background, you're making it for a character. So this isn't something that you're like, I want to publish my own background. This is more of I'm making a background that works for the character concept I have in mind. And we'll touch on that whenever we get to the character that we'll example, whenever we'll get to there.
Yeah. No, because I'm looking at it the opposite way. It's
You're
like, ooh,
saying?
well, I'm saying like you put an example here. You made a custom background, and now I'm thinking that's on the Caverns and Creatures website forever. This is a valuable resource for the world.
It can't, like, you can use the example, it's fine.
Yeah.
I just Backgrounds inherently don't hold a lot of power.
Yeah.
Backgrounds, as they're designed, are a pairing of skills, a pairing of tool proficiencies and languages, and a usually fluff feature. They're just sort of here to give you inspiration as to what your character believes in, what they're about.
Yeah.
And customizing it is the reason this is such an easy process is because it isn't inherently baked with all that power. Even making your own background features, as we'll get into, doesn't have to be that daunting of a task.
Yeah. All right. What's next?
All right, so next step, you picked your 2 skills. Bob picked 2 skills. What 2 are you taking?
I'm taking stealth and ooh, the wise person would take perception. I'm taking sleight of hand.
All right, stealth and sleight of hand. Great. Now, moving on to step number 2, we've got our fun little section called choosing tool proficiencies or languages. So the basic rules list gaming sets, thieves tools, artisan tools, and land vehicles as bonus proficiencies you can pick from between their backgrounds. Additionally, the player's handbook added disguise kits, forgery kits, herbalism kits, water vehicles, musical instruments. Here, you basically pick any of those, any 2 of those, or any 2 including the artisan's tools. So alchemist supplies, brewer supplies, calligrapher's supplies, carpenter's tools, cartographer's tools, cook's utensils, glassblower's tools, jeweler's tools, leatherworker tools, mason's tools, painter's tools, potter's tools, smith's tools, tinker's tools, weaver's tools, and woodcarver's tools. If you thought I taught fast before, boy howdy, did that list really paint that picture well. You can also pick a language here. My only advice as far as picking out of this list is that languages suck the most. Like, you're going to use them the least, I think, on average. And gaming sets are probably the second worst. They're the other option that's not going to provide that much of a meaningful boon to your sheet. Musical instruments, I think, probably come in third as far as least useful of these possible options at your disposal. But you can pick any two of these. So you can get water vehicles if you want to be have sailing as part of your background, and it can be helpful on ships. You can pick forgery kits if you want to be able to, do more of a spy background kind of thing. You can do land vehicles if you want to be good at steering carriages. You can pick calligrapher's supplies if you want to be really good at painting with or writing.
Okay. For now, I know you're not a fan of languages, but I've noticed looking at other backgrounds. We've been doing a lot of background reviews on the website. Um, there are some that like give you a list of options, and there's just some that say like pick one of your choice.
Yeah.
I feel like, if you're if you're putting a language on here, give it a pick one of your choice.
I mean, yeah, all the languages. I don't think I can remember any backgrounds that offer specific language. I think they
Oh, they
all are
don't?
language of your choice.
Maybe I'm misremembering then.
I don't. It may be the case that one of them gives you Draconic or something. There might be
Hmm.
some from some books that specifically give you languages based off the setting. Generally, languages are worse than the other things because comprehend languages exists, and just if language is a problem, which it usually isn't, then the odds of your language battering it's still very small. Like, if you come across gnolls and they speak gnoll and they don't speak dwarf, you being a commoner that picked dwarf as your language doesn't come up. And the only time that language barrier existed in that game, the one language you picked didn't matter. That's, I think, what happens a lot of the time whenever people pick languages with backgrounds. So don't do
You
that.
know,
Pick
you
tools
know,
instead.
this is America. Speak English.
Exactly. Exactly.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Isn't your wife Korean? Um. So here, which are you picking? You get two.
Let me. What are Tinker's tools?
They let you tinker and build little contraptions
I mean,
like
how's that different than like Smith's tools or
Smith's tools are used to make
crafting?
armor and hammers and stuff. Tinker's
Yeah,
tools are like the screwdrivers and the minute making music boxes and whatnot. They're like the
I guess
clockmakers.
they'd be less heavy to carry around.
They would be.
That's maybe something to consider. I'm definitely taking thieves' tools. Or is that what they're called?
That is an option. Yes, you can take thieves'
Yes,
tools.
I'm taking that because that goes with my skill picks.
Mhm.
What else do I want? All right. I'm gonna pamper myself a little bit. I'm gonna take cook's utensils. If I'm out in the wilderness and I, you know, kill a squirrel, I want it to be the best squirrel anybody can have.
Yeah, now you're eating good.
Yeah.
Quick shout out to Xanathar Got Everything, I think is where the expanded tool rules are. If you want to get cool rules for like making skill checks using your tools that do stuff, that those all the artisan's tools are expanded in there, including cook's utensils. So we've
Okay.
established your skills, we've established your tools. On number 3, you pick equipment package or starting wealth. This is, I think, the option, the element of character background building I knew the least about, because normally I just say take whatever you want to my players out of the player's handbook. Just like if it's less than 1,000 gold, it's free. Just take whatever suits your fancy. Or what I've also been doing is just in the moment, as opposed to having people have to pick ahead of time. I just go, you can say you picked it up, and we'll have a little recollection of you being at the shop, and that gold is somehow never was in your pack, and now you have the rope. Look at that, we did it. I tend to DM like that. And in any case, how it actually works is you choose an equipment package or you choose starting wealth. If you choose an equipment package, you get the choice of equipment from your class and a set of equipment from a background. So if you do that here, you would find a background, you would pick its equipment, you would get its equipment and a selection from your class. That is the equipment package deal. Some of it comes with gold, but you don't get to spend any of that gold on bonus items until the game actually starts. You just start with the starting equipment package that you get from your class, that you get from your background. So far, you're with me?
Yes.
Other option. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'm a little no. Do the other option first because I was gonna talk about how I'm divided between them.
That's fair. The one starting wealth, this has agnostic of your background entirely unrelated to this. You start with your class's starting wealth. If you're a monk, sorry, you get 5d4 gold. If you're anyone else, you get XD4 times 10 gold. And I on the site I have all the averages for these that you can look down and consider. Bob, I forgot Artifice when I first did this. Bob updated it so the Artifice is on there as well. This average is around 100 gold for the most people. If you're a druid or barbarian, you're poor. If you're a monk, you're broke. And if you're a fighter, you are or a bard or a cleric, you're rich. You have 125 gold. And then you can
Yay.
just use that money to purchase every single item from the player's handbook that you would want. So,
Yeah, see, I'm of two minds on this. I guess not so much recently because I'm so much busier than I was when I was younger. But in my younger years playing D&D, I part of the character creation process that I liked was going through the little shopping list and
mhm.
picking and choosing all my starting equipment, and that was fun. But now I don't really have time to do that. Also, I kind of like just because when you get a starting package, there are there's stuff in there that you never would have bought, like if you were going through the shopping, and that can be fun to use in interesting, fun ways.
Yeah, honestly, a lot of the random equipment garbage that you get that's like a 5-cent candle were the highlights for a lot of the backgrounds in these options, just because they were some of the only unique things that I would be like, oh, I would have never thought to buy that. That's
Yes.
kind of neat here. Incense sticks, for example. I would have never thought as a cleric to purchase incense, but there could be cute scenarios where you're using it in some creative ways to make certain aromas or whatever, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so yeah, there's not a whole lot more to go off here. I do have a full comprehensive list. I don't know why I did this, but I opted to go through every player's handbook option and write down what their equipment package was. So you have that on the site if you want to just have a nice, concise list to pick from. I don't have any personal preference as to which are the best. Some of them give you gold. Like I think the most you get is 25 if you go noble, but most give you some amount of equipment and stuff like that that can be
Yeah.
useful. What are you picking?
Oh, I got to pick one of these lists. Let's
You can pick
see.
a, or you can just pick the starting gold, and
I'm
that
not
saves
picking the
both
starting
time.
gold. I that's ironic because if you pick the starting gold, that usually involves wasting a lot of time
Way,
shopping.
oh yeah, that's normally way more time intensive.
Let's see. I'm gonna pick
You want to just keep going down the list and going criminal all the way?
criminal. Let's see. What do they get?
A crowbar, dark.
Crowbar, dark common clothes, including a. That's not much stuff, and not very interesting either.
Charlatan gives you disguise kit out the gate. That's kind of neat.
Guys,
You
kit.
can't use
That's
it,
good.
but you could take it.
Ooh. Folk hero gives you a trinket.
The favor of an admirer, a love letter, a lock of hair, or a trinket. Yes. Going with that one.
Yeah, I'll go with that one.
All right, you're a folk hero. Equipment.
Equipment. Yes,
The
so
equipment
glad I'm
of a
not a
folk hero
folk
currently.
hero. Right.
Yes. As well as whatever your class is, which this character doesn't have at the moment.
Probably rogue.
Next, yeah, who would have guessed? We have our fourth step, choose the background feature or create a background feature. So you can choose a background feature from all of the existing ones that have been printed. I will put an asterisk next to this. You want to talk to your DM about what backgrounds are on the table because some of them come with feats, as I mentioned at the start of this video. Most of them, though, are going to be like, you are warmly regarded if you're kind to strangers, which is pointless because that's just how life works.
Yeah.
So, 99% of background features are fluff. There is one exception. That exception is nobles have the ability to get retainers, and retainers are just NPCs that are at your disposal. It's really, really cool. I wish more background features were closer to that, of giving you like an actual world resource than they are, but
Yeah, a
they're
lot of
not.
them are really specific too. Like you can get shelter in your hometown if so that's useful if you never ever leave your hometown.
I think clerics is like when you're in a temple devoted to your deity, and I was like, are you even adventuring at that point? Like, aren't you just like safe at home? Who gives a crap? Like,
Well, I don't know about that though, because I mean, like your deity is whatever Zeus
what if
or whatever. They're going to be temples to Zeus wherever you go.
what
Any
if
big
your
city.
deity is like you're playing the evil death domain cleric, and you're like, I worship the goddess of pain and suffering. Are you gonna go to her temple and expect hospitality? I wouldn't.
That's I don't know. I don't know how that's going to work.
Yeah, I don't either. I think that's the case of most backgrounds. Is like most of the time this doesn't have text, and when it does have text, it's like I have an RP advantage, which is really hard to make tangible in terms of
Mm.
the actual gameplay. All right, do you want to pick a background? Just we could just wheel of fortune it, just like Urchin, and move on with life. Urchin lets you
Yeah,
move through
that's
streets slightly faster.
sure. That sounds good.
Great.
That sounds like me.
All right, Urchin it is. All right, so you pick the Urchin background feature. Alternatively, we could have made a custom one. The custom ones you just loosely base off of the existing ones, and they should be around that power level of people will be
Nothing.
more amicable to you if you're in a certain situation, right?
Sure.
Yeah, that's like the 99% of it. I have a little two blurbs on creating background features. You can consult that if you want to get more into it. But again, most of them are very, very simple. And we'll talk more about it whenever we get to the actual example. So our final step is choose your personality traits, bounds, and flaws. This is literally up to you. You can scour all of the tables if you want to find your own. You can roll on tables if you'd like. You can just come up with the ones you want. You can ignore this entirely and figure it out on the day. That's also totally fine. The majority of tables. You can decide what you want this character to be like. You can change their personality. It doesn't really matter as far as this final step, but this is the official final step. Now you've created your full background. Huzzah! We did it! Bob, you wrote down 5 or 10 background traits. You want to go over what your background is then? I got it all listed. Don't worry.
All right, we were talking about like the skills and all that.
Yep.
All right. I did stealth and sleight of hand.
Yep.
What was the next step?
Your proficiencies.
Proficiencies. I did thieves' tools and cooking utensils.
Correct.
All right. What else?
Do you remember
What's
what equipment you picked?
Folk hero equipment.
And last step.
I forgot.
It was your background feature. You picked urchin randomly.
Urchin, yes.
And just like that, we have created your own custom background that is
Yay.
marginally different than criminal. Which is fine. Like that, this is a customized criminal is what this basically reads as, which is entirely that's within the prerogative of this character, right? That's the point of doing this.
What skills does criminal have?
I believe they get intimidation and stealth. Let me double check.
Yeah, I like mine better.
I agree. I think urchin gets sleight of hand or something maybe. Oh, sorry, you get deception and stealth is what you get as criminal. So you get
I
sleight
like
of
this
hand
one
instead of stealth.
I picked 2 dexterity skills. That way I can just lean heavily into that.
Sure. And your class can pick up the rest of the way for whatever else you get. Because you get skills in your class too.
Yeah.
The last thing we can really go over is my example. So we've done over Bob's example. Mine's a little bit more in depth because I have a concept first, where Bob was sort of like, what skills do I like? Which is a super relevant, fine way to do it. I wanted to make a character whose identity was a failed student. This is a person that got in way over their head in an expensive college from some high position of privilege, and they flunked their way out and have sort of made a life adventuring to make up for the difference. Maybe they were in a wizarding college, they couldn't cut the mustard. So with this idea in mind, the skills I went for were deception and insight. My concept being they have to lie to get their, keep funds coming. Oh, everything's fine, mom and dad. Don't worry about it. Deception makes sense for me there. And insight is I need to read the room. I need to be able to quickly identify where am I allowed to be? What am I allowed to say? How do I get by through this class as badly as possible? How do I read my professor? What can I get off of them in this instance? I think both those skills make sense. That was pretty useful too. For tool proficiencies, I went with a musical instrument, the guitar, because this is, I'm thinking very much college flunky here, and I can envision, he's wasting way too much time on the lawn playing guitar. And forgery kit, because he had to forge so many reports to varying people to make it look like he's not failing, so he could keep money, so he keeps going there, Starting equipment, I went with the Sage starting equipment, and his classes starting equipment, because Sage gets the scholarly stuff. It makes sense that someone that failed out of academia would have scholarly stuff, right?
Yeah.
For his background feature, I went with position of privilege, or a variant feature I made called magical mishaps, which is closer to the feat-based stuff that we talked about at the beginning of the video. So a position of privilege is just the noble one. It makes sense that people will be like, "Oh, your family's super loaded. How are people?" And you have to be like, "They're great. I am still loaded because my parents are, and I may have dropped out of college, but it's fine because my parents are rich." Alternatively, I made a magical mishaps variant feature, which I think is pretty close to that of like Squire of Solomnia. And this basically gives you a few times per long rest, roll a random spell, and they're all useful in combat. So you can get either Hideous Laughter, Bless, Magic Missile, Raise Sickness, Grease, or Bane. And it's just basically some random spell slots that you start with your proficiency bonus and they scale with level. It is a powerful feature. I would equate it close to something like Strixhaven and Initiate, because that one is consistent, but this gives you a little bit more options.
So is this something like you cast a spell and then roll a die and that's the spell you cast?
Yeah, as an action, you roll on the table, it casts that spell. You cast that spell. It's a d6 for those 6 options, is the gist of it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's slightly overtuned. You would talk to your DM about it. I think it's a pretty reasonable idea. And if I'm playing at a table, it's got Squire of Solomnia or Mage of High Sorcery or whatever. I think this fits around side it pretty cleanly. And finally, for background traits, I think this is a character that's perpetually late to everything. They have small random fixations on random topics. Maybe they have ADHD, or they're ADHD coded, or like something like that. Maybe they're just super curious, and that has led them to just fall down rabbit holes of not doing their academic study. That's why they learn guitar so well, and they just continue to bounce around between these ideas, and it can be really fun. And maybe they kind of hate their noble upbringing, or maybe it shines through, and they're super pleasantry, and they have all their little table manners, little quirks and stuff like that. That's the whole concept, right? And that is basically me walking you through the process of creating this idea, failed student, and making a background using this guide in a pretty clean and concise way. And again, this is all based off of 2 paragraphs that they give you within the player's handbook for customizing a background in chapter 4 of the basic rules. So
All
there you
right,
go.
well, that was great. That's as much as I ever wanted to know about making a custom background.
More, some might say.
All right, well, thank you, Sam, and thank you for that, and thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. Yeah, if you've got any thoughts on the matter, let us know down in the comments, and yeah, like, subscribe. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.